Hey everyone, welcome back. Really glad you're here tonight. If you're new, the idea is pretty simple. I read Reddit stories while you relax, wind down, or drift off to sleep. No drama, no loud reactions, just some stories in a calm voice. If you enjoy it, dropping a like or subscribing genuinely helps a lot. And I always love reading the comments, so if you feel like it, let me know what you're doing while you watch. Are you in bed, lying on the couch, maybe just killing time before you fall asleep? Whatever it is, I hope this makes your evening a little better. Alright, let's get into it. We've got 4 stories tonight. A couple of them are frustrating, one is kind of funny in a painful way, and one is just genuinely wholesome. I'll try to keep the energy nice and low throughout so it stays easy to listen to. Let's go. So this is going to sound unbelievable, and I'll admit, even typing it out, I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. But here's what happened. I work in marketing at a mid-sized company. I've been there for about 4 years. My coworker, I'll call her Dana, started about 6 months after me. We were friendly from the start. We got lunch together pretty regularly. We'd complain about the same manager, the usual office friendship stuff. Part of what made us close was that we'd talk through ideas together. Like, I'd be stuck on a campaign concept, I'd mention it to Dana over lunch, she'd add her thoughts, and I'd go away and actually develop it into something. That felt normal to me. That felt like how colleagues are supposed to work. I genuinely enjoyed those conversations. What I didn't realize was happening in parallel was that Dana would take the rough version of whatever I'd mentioned, the half-formed idea, the early concept, and bring it up in meetings before I had a chance to present it properly. Not exactly the same, but close enough that it was obviously sourced from our conversations, and she'd present it as something she'd been thinking about. I started noticing a pattern about 8 months ago. I'd go to bring up something in a team meeting and my manager would say, "Oh yes, Dana mentioned something similar last week," and then they'd kind of talk over my version because it felt redundant. I thought it was coincidence at first. I genuinely did. I told myself we just thought similarly because we talked a lot. But then there was the campaign for a client we'd had for years. The client was a local outdoors brand and they wanted something for their spring launch. I had this idea for a campaign built around the concept of first times, first hike, first camping trip, first time seeing a certain trail. Nostalgic but forward-looking. I talked it through with Dana at lunch on a Tuesday. I told her the headline I was thinking, the emotional angle, roughly what the visuals could look like. That Thursday in the client presentation meeting, Dana presented almost exactly that concept. She had a slightly different headline, but the whole structure, the emotional core, the idea of the campaign, it was mine, word for word in places. I sat there in that meeting room and I felt genuinely sick, because suddenly it wasn't a coincidence anymore. Suddenly all of those times my ideas felt familiar to everyone, all of those times my contributions felt redundant, they all clicked into place. After the meeting I went back to my desk and I just sat there for a while. I didn't know what to do. Dana came over about an hour later and said, "Great meeting, right?" And I looked at her and said, "Yeah, that campaign concept was interesting." She didn't flinch. She didn't look uncomfortable at all. She just said, "I've been sitting on it for a while. I was glad it landed." I went home that evening and I laid out everything I could remember. Every idea I'd mentioned to her in passing. Every time it had shown up in a meeting before I'd had a chance to develop it. It was extensive. It went back further than I'd realized. I spent about 2 weeks deciding what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her directly. Part of me wanted to go straight to my manager. Part of me was worried I'd look paranoid, like I was claiming ownership of ideas that were never really that original. Because that's the thing about ideas, they're slippery. You can't fully prove that a concept originated with you if someone else has already presented it. What I ended up doing was starting to document everything going forward. Every idea I had, I wrote it down with a timestamp. I started sending myself emails when I had concepts I was developing, and I stopped talking through ideas with Dana. Not dramatically, not obviously, I just stopped. When she'd ask what I was working on, I'd say something vague like, "Oh, nothing interesting yet, still in the early stages." Within 2 months, my ideas started landing properly again. I'd present them and they'd be new to everyone in the room. My manager started commenting that I was having a really strong run. I got assigned to a bigger account. And Dana's output started to thin out. She'd go to meetings and contribute less. She'd defer more. She started asking me questions about what I was working on more frequently, and I kept giving her nothing. I never confronted her, I never told my manager. I just quietly closed the tap and watched what happened. Part of me still wonders if I should have said something, but I think the outcome I got was better than any confrontation would have produced. She still works there, we're civil, but we don't have lunch anymore. The thing that stays with me from this whole experience is how long it went on before I noticed. 2 years. 2 years of genuinely thinking of her as a friend and a collaborator while she was skimming the best parts of our conversations. I don't know if she knew exactly what she was doing. I don't know if she'd convinced herself it was fine, but either way, it was happening. And the only way I caught it was by accident. Trust your gut when something starts feeling off, and maybe keep your best ideas to yourself until you're ready to present them. That one always gets to me because it's such a long con. It's not someone having a bad day or making one bad decision. It's someone quietly benefiting from your openness over years. Okay, moving on to the next one. This one's a bit more chaotic. Okay, this one is less of a serious situation and more of a mess I created entirely by accident. I'm not the bad guy in this story, I just have extremely bad timing. My neighbor, I'll call him Marcus, has a dog named Biscuit. Biscuit is a golden retriever, about 3 years old, and genuinely one of the most enthusiastic animals I've ever encountered in my life. This dog has enough energy to power a small city. Marcus and I have been neighbors for about 2 years. We're friendly, we wave, we've had a few conversations over the fence. He's a good guy. Biscuit is a good dog. Everything was fine. The incident that started all of this happened on a Saturday morning in September. I was walking back from the grocery store, and as I came up the street, I saw Marcus struggling to get Biscuit back inside. The dog had apparently managed to get out of the gate, and Marcus was chasing him across the front lawn in his socks, looking completely exhausted. I put my grocery bags down and spent about 3 minutes helping Coral Biscuit back toward the gate. The dog, apparently deciding in that moment that I was the greatest person alive, sat at my feet and stared at me with the kind of adoration usually reserved for people who have known a dog its entire life. I gave him a little scratch behind the ears. He went inside. Marcus thanked me. I grabbed my groceries and went home. I did not think about this again. Biscuit, however, clearly thought about it a lot. The next morning I was sitting in my living room with coffee, and I heard this low whining sound outside my front door. I opened it and Biscuit was sitting on my doorstep. I have no idea how he got out. I have no idea how he knew which house was mine, but there he was. I texted Marcus, he came and got him, apologized about 17 times and fixed the latch on the gate. I thought that was the end of it. It was not the end of it. Over the following 3 weeks, Biscuit showed up at my door 4 more times. Each time Marcus would come and get him, mortified. Each time I'd find some way to have accidentally reinforced Biscuit's attachment. I gave him a piece of toast once, I threw a stick for him in the front garden another time. I made the mistake of using an excited voice when I said hello to him. I didn't know I was building a dependency. I was just being a normal person. By November, Biscuit knew my schedule. I am not exaggerating. The dog had figured out when I left for work and when I came home, and he would sit at the fence when he knew I was due to pass by. Marcus told me this with an expression that I can only describe as diplomatically apologetic. Then things escalated. I started getting invitations. Marcus, probably out of desperation and a little bit of genuine humor, started sending me texts like, "Biscuit has been looking for you all morning, I think you have to come say hello." Or, "We're going to the park at 4, Biscuit has requested your presence." I obliged more than I probably should have. Biscuit is an extremely charming dog. The situation is now at the point where Marcus and I have become genuinely close friends, which neither of us planned. We go to the park together 2 or 3 times a week. I've had dinner at his place. He's come over to watch football. Biscuit sleeps half the time with his nose pressed against my front door from the other side of the fence, which Marcus says he's just accepted as a personality trait now. I've started calling myself Biscuit's emotional support human, which Marcus finds very funny. His girlfriend, who I've also now met, says that Biscuit has excellent taste. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just helped a panicking guy catch his dog one morning, and now I have a standing dinner invitation and a golden retriever who tracks my movements. Honestly, I don't hate it. That one just makes me smile every time. Sometimes things work out in the weirdest ways. Okay, we're about halfway through now. Take a breath, get comfortable. The next one is a bit heavier. I want to preface this by saying I love my family. I'm not here to bash them. But this is a thing that happened and I've been carrying it around for about a year, and I needed to write it out somewhere. A bit of context, I'm the oldest of 3 kids. My sister, I'll call her Rachel, is 2 years younger than me. My brother is the youngest, he's 4 years younger. I grew up in a household where my parents worked hard and provided everything we needed, but they weren't particularly expressive people. We weren't a family that said I love you easily. Praise wasn't really part of the daily fabric of things. This is not unusual. I know a lot of people grew up this way. I'm not unique in that. What I did grow up with was a constant awareness that Rachel was the one who had things figured out. She was in the gifted program. She graduated near the top of her class. She went to a good university, got a sensible degree, got a job in finance, bought a house. My parents talked about her achievements constantly, not in a mean way, not in a way designed to make me feel bad, just in a way that made clear that Rachel was the benchmark. My own path was less linear. I took a gap year. I changed my major twice. I didn't graduate on the timeline they expected. After university, I worked a string of jobs that weren't glamorous: retail, then admin, then a junior position at a non-profit. I eventually found my footing in project management. I'm doing well now. I'm stable and genuinely happy with where I am. But for years there was this quiet, unspoken feeling that I was the one who hadn't quite delivered. Rachel got married last spring. It was a beautiful wedding, outdoor venue, late afternoon ceremony. I was a bridesmaid. The whole day was about her, as it should be. I wasn't carrying any resentment into that day. I want to be clear about that. I was happy for her. I cried at the ceremony. I meant it. At the reception, my dad gave a speech. He talked about Rachel's work ethic, her integrity, how she'd always made them proud. All of this was true and deserved. And then he mentioned me, which I wasn't expecting. He said something like, "And I also want to say, looking at the way you've supported your sister today and the person you've become, your mother and I are proud of you too." And then he moved on, continued with the speech, raised his glass. I sat there and I smiled, because what else do you do in the middle of a wedding reception? But inside, I felt this strange collapse happening, because I was 31 years old and it was the first time I had ever heard my parents say they were proud of me, and they had said it as a footnote, in someone else's speech, at someone else's wedding. I didn't cry, I didn't make a scene. I helped Rachel bustle her dress and I danced and I laughed with my aunts and I did everything you're supposed to do. But there was this part of me that was sitting in a corner somewhere, processing something I didn't have words for. I called my best friend the next day and tried to explain it. She said, "You're allowed to feel both things at once, happy for Rachel and also a bit wrecked for yourself." She was right, that's exactly what it was. The thing I keep coming back to is that my dad meant it. He wasn't saying it as a throwaway, he genuinely felt it. And in his mind, I think he might not have realized that it was the first time. I think he might have assumed I already knew. That's the part that gets me, not that it was cruel, but that it wasn't even intentional. The absence of those words for 31 years was just the default. Nobody noticed it was missing. I haven't talked to my parents about it. I'm not sure I will. There's a version of this story where I have a big conversation and everything gets aired out and we all grow. But there's also a version where I say, "Hey, that was the first time you ever told me you were proud of me," and my dad looks genuinely confused and a little hurt, and nothing really gets resolved. What I've done instead is just let it sit. I notice it, I hold it, and then I remind myself that I know I've done good things. I know what I've built. The absence of a particular sentence for 30 years doesn't take any of that away. If you grew up in a family like mine, I think you know what I mean, and I think you're doing fine. I appreciate whoever shared that. It takes something to put that into words. All right, last story of the night. I kept this one for the end on purpose because it's genuinely sweet and I want you to go to sleep on something good. And that's all 4 stories for tonight. I hope at least one of them hit right for you, whether it made you laugh a little, or feel seen, or just gave you something easy to listen to while you wind down. If you made it this far, thank you. Genuinely, it means a lot that you spend your quiet time here. If you enjoyed it, a like or a subscribe goes a long way. Drop a comment if you're feeling it, even just letting me know what you were doing while you watched. Alright, I'll let you sleep, or drift, or just rest. Whatever you need tonight, take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. This happened about 7 months ago, and I still think about it regularly. I want to tell it because I think good things deserve to be remembered. My cat's name is Fig. She's a tabby, about 6 years old, and she has absolutely no survival instincts. I live in a ground floor flat, and Fig is an indoor cat specifically because she's the kind of cat who would walk directly into traffic while making eye contact with you. One evening in October, I came home from work and the window in my bedroom had blown open further than I'd left it. Fig was nowhere in the flat. I checked every cupboard, every corner, under every piece of furniture. She was gone. I felt that specific panic that I think every pet owner knows, where your heart just drops and your mind immediately goes to the worst place. I went outside with my phone torch and started calling her name. Fig almost never comes when called, because she is a cat and she operates on her own agenda, but you do it anyway because you don't know what else to do. I was about 10 minutes in, crouched behind some bins at the side of the building, when a man came out of the building across the street. He was probably in his mid-50s, wearing a jacket like he'd just been about to head somewhere. He saw me and asked if I'd lost something. I told him my cat had got out. He nodded like this was the most natural thing in the world and said, "Okay, what does she look like?" He then spent the next 45 minutes helping me search. We divided the street. He went down one end, I went down the other. He knocked on the door of the house 2 buildings over and asked if they'd seen a tabby. He got his phone torch out and checked behind a whole row of wheelie bins on his own initiative. He suggested checking under parked cars, which I wouldn't have thought of. We found Fig under a transit van about 100 meters from my building. She was sitting completely calmly, like she'd been there for years, judging us both for making a fuss. I scooped her up and held her longer than she appreciated. I turned to thank the man and he was already halfway back across the street. I called out after him and he just waved without turning around and said, "Glad you found her." And that was it. He went back inside. I don't know his name. I've seen him a few times since from a distance, but I've never managed to actually speak to him. He doesn't seem to remember the interaction, or if he does, he doesn't treat it like it was a significant thing. But it was significant. It was a Tuesday evening, and this man had no reason to spend 45 minutes helping a stranger find a cat in the dark. He could have said sorry to hear that and gone about his evening. Instead, he just rolled up his sleeves and helped. No expectation, no acknowledgement, no drama. I think about those 45 minutes more than I probably should. There's something in it that I find genuinely comforting. The idea that a complete stranger will just show up and do a kind thing for no reason, and then walk away like it was nothing. Fig is fine, by the way. She has since shown zero remorse for the whole episode, and continues to sit in the window looking longingly at the outside world. The window has a better latch now.